Welcome back, everybody. Joining me at the roundtable this morning is the one and only Jason Colthorp. I'm not sure where his suit jacket is, though. Mario Morrow and Portia Roberson, CEO of Focus Health. Thank you so much for joining me. Okay, let's just start basics. Any surprises out of this race and the results?
Well, the surprise for me is that Mary Sheffield had the number of votes that she received, and to get over 50% is amazing, outstanding.
Yeah. In fact, the AP called it about 9:30 last night.
It was early last night.
So she did a very impressive job. Her team did a job well done to get her at that level, which kind of sets the tone for the general election.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be, I mean, this is, climbing Mount Everest for Solomon Kinloch, because you not only got to, turn out a vote, because we didn't have a large percentage of voter turnout, so you got to try and turn out the vote. But the most important thing you've got to do now is you've got to be able to raise money. And who gives money to a candidate who his opposition is in the 50% range?
Right.
Like, who says, here, I'll give you some more money to try and do this? And so if he can't raise money at this point, it's over already, because Mary was on TV every chance she got.
Took nothing for granted.
Nothing for granted. And, Solomon, I think, was a little quiet still in the primary. I mean, he got over the hump. I know a lot of that came from people knowing him from his church. But now it's time to boots on the ground for real. Like, he's got to get out there. He's got to be everywhere. He's got to be encouraging people to get out and vote for him. And if he doesn't do that, I mean, we're looking at 3 months of really Mary's coronation.
Can it be done? I mean, you're looking at 50% versus a 17%. Obviously, there's votes to be had there, but that, as you said, that hill is a mountain. It's huge.
Well, I've heard you two both say, when we saw our early polling, there was, I think, 22% undecided, and we were like, well, if that could break a certain way, it almost all broke for Sheffield. And if you add up all of the votes, in Kinloch's and everyone else's, it's still short of what Mary Sheffield got. And I've heard you guys talk about his base. They're locked in on Kinloch one way or the other. He's got his solid core votes. It's moving outside of that.
Well, the issue was, I think there was a poll maybe 2 weeks ago where Mary didn't seem to have moved anywhere. She didn't have brought anybody else to her campaign. And the concern was, she's got her base, but if she hasn't moved anybody with the kind of advertisement she was doing and all the stuff she was doing, somebody else can really get in there and do stuff. And like you said, the 22% went all with Mary. And so she did move people. She did gather people that she didn't normally, that she wasn't, pulling in the beginning. So
and I think it was primarily the AVs. I mean, we don't know the exact numbers at this point, but she had to kill them in the AVs, had to kill them all. Yes, I think the money can be raised, and it's going to have to be soft money. It's going to have to be money that's hidden behind a 504c3 because people are going to be like, I don't want to put my name out there right now because this could be the next mayor. However, there are PACs, there are organizations, there are out-of-state funding. There's a way to raise that money. But the retooling, the redevelopment, the reorganization of the campaign staff.
Are we talking a whole new campaign team here?
Oh, no. You're talking about organizational changes.
Okay.
I'm thinking bringing in some experts on a national level for Solomon Kinloch to bring and be that structure to guide these individuals. Maybe a little more work in the area of the ground and also communications.
I would say this, though. I think if you're Solomon and you're retooling, and I agree with Mario, you got to look at some people who are experts in doing this work. But you also have to be careful, because Detroiters really like Detroiters working on their campaign. You get too
we
national.
don't like outsiders.
You get too fancy with the people
I disagree
you
a
bring
little
in.
bit because, Archer brought in Ashenfelter. Kwame brought in some guy from Chicago. I mean, when Freeman Hendricks ran, he brought in, I mean, there are some people out there, and most of the people I mentioned are older now, but people who have national prominence who can come in, take a back seat, but direct
Well, that's the thing. If they take a back seat and still allow the visual of the campaign to be the people that we all know have been a part of Solomon Kinloch's campaign thus far, I think he'll be fine. But if you put somebody at the front of it that's not from Detroit, Detroiters get a little wary about that.
Would either of you advise him to change, like we just heard in Nick's interview, he's already kind of changing the thought of, will he run the church full-time versus mayor full-time? So he's already moving on that kind of platform, but is there another messaging shift you would maybe foresee or advise?
I would get out of the pastoral game altogether. I would just say, you know, I recognize, as tough as this campaign has been, I recognize that the mayor of the city of Detroit is a full-time job. It's going to take my utmost attention. I'm going to have to be there and focused every day. I can have a strong team at the city. He can lead the church to the strong team he has at the church, but you can't do both.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's your messaging right there. They need to hire Portia to go ahead because that's exactly what that. Because I think he came out a little bit too late with the the part-time pastor thing. I think he was trying to dance on glass there with the congregation also. With
because
people.
much of his base was the congregation.
Oh yeah,
Right.
and you can see they came out for him. I mean, he's a neophyte politician. He's not really a politician. He is now, but he beat Chantil. He beat Fred Durhal. He beat James Craig. He beat these veteran politicians who have been out there. And I think inside itself, regardless of the margin there, the gap between Mary Sheffield and Kinloch, that was impressive. That was impressive. Game has started over again. This is round 2.
Yep.
Round 2 starting today.
Yeah.
And I would take it to a next level, and I would have been on the phone last night.
There you go.
It's with all these individuals who lost and said, can I meet with you?
Right.
You want to meet now or in the morning?
We're going to take a short break. We've got to do a cut in here back on television. So we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk more about not only what the campaign is going to look like ahead, but voter turnout as well. More election coverage, including that's next here in the city of Detroit. Welcome back to Local 4 Live. Thank you for joining us on Local 4 Plus. Click on Detroit.com and streaming on YouTube. We are continuing to break down last night's election across Metro Detroit, including, of course, that hotly contested race for Detroit mayor. City Council President Mary Sheffield will take on Pastor Solomon Kinloch Jr. to become the city's next leader. And while we know who will be on the November ballot, we do need to discuss what happened during the primary, which is voter turnout. Here are some of the numbers for you. There are more than 645,000 people living in the city of Detroit. Of those, 518,000 are registered to vote. And during the primary yesterday, 85,000 people went to the polls. That is a 16% voter turnout. So let's talk more about that with the roundtable. Mario, Portia, Jason, what happened? Now, here's the thing. We knew this would happen, though.
We knew it would happen.
We knew, but why?
Yeah.
You know, I was surprised because I thought we had a healthy group of candidates for mayor, and I thought that the choice would drive people to the polls. But I was surprised because oftentimes on social media and talking to people, people were not as excited as I expected them to be, right? And I know there are those of us who dabble in politics all the time, and we love it. So, you know, I always say, like, election night is like Christmas for me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm excited
It's
about
Super
it,
Bowl,
right?
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of folks who just don't see change significantly enough to think that voting will make a difference for them. They really do believe that it doesn't matter who's in any of these elected offices, right? That it's all going to be the same thing. And I think there is truth to this argument, whether you believe it or not, that there are two Detroits still, and that there are people who live here in the city who are registered to vote, but who feel like the change has not come in the way that they expected to come 12 years ago.
Couldn't that be fixed depending on who the next mayor is, and wouldn't that then determine how you want to vote?
I don't know, but I think Portia's right. The voter apathy is at an all-time high. And I was reading, and I think it was in Cranes, that Janice Winfrey was interviewed, and she indicated that, well, you know, people are just not excited about these candidates, which contradicts what you're saying. In addition, she said, I think that Trump has a lot to do with it. I'm like, what? What does Trump have to do with anything? Matter of fact, if you're anti-Trump or anti the GOP administration, whatever's going on, MAGA, then that would inspire you even more to get out and vote. I just don't think that people really understand the benefit and the net worth of going out and casting your vote. I mean, we have grandparents and great-grandparents that are turning in their graves right now on the lack. I'm not talking about racial, I'm talking about all across the board on the lack of participation. I don't have the answer. If I did, I'd probably be a millionaire. I don't understand what's going on. How are you going to, and Kinloch has to do this. He's got to excite this base and get to those people who didn't show up at the polling place.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting that this is an election where you go from Mike Duggan to someone new. You'd think, at least in the primary, you'd see a surge from primary numbers just because people are thinking, All right, this is a big election. This is a big choice from where the city's in a spot where you have momentum now. You've come out of bankruptcy. You're on the right track. This is a key election, and for the voter turnout to still be low. And I just wonder if it's something along the lines of, you hear these candidates say what we've heard in the past, like, we've got to do more in the neighborhoods, and I'm going to do that. But you've seen over time, even though Mike Duggan would argue that he's done work in the neighborhoods, there's still a lot of places where all you have to do is take a drive, and you're like, no, there's more that needs to be done.
So if you are Mary or if you're Solomon, what is the messaging to the voting base to convince them to get to the polls, especially Solomon, coming November?
Well, I think the first thing is you've got to meet people where they are. And I think, Solomon and Mary, to a certain extent, although I think Mary did a fantastic job at getting her messaging out to our seniors and people who traditionally vote. But you've got to try to find a way to get the message to the 18-year-olds through the 30-year-olds. And they are not looking at network television. Wait,
what?
I know. I'm sorry. I hate
We're
to say
streaming.
this.
We're streaming.
We're streaming now, so they're listening. I mean, but you've got to, I don't even know that they're on Facebook anymore. You better come up with a TikTok challenge that talks to the Solomon Kinloch campaign, because that's where you're going to find those voters that
Ice
you
bucket
need.
challenge.
That's a good idea.
Listen, Facebook is old now, right? They think Facebook is for old people. Like
it is.
And I'm on Facebook, so I say
resemble that remark.
Right, exactly.
You don't resent you.
Seriously, you've got to come up with something that makes them interested in who you are. And if you don't, you're not going to get those voters. And
I'll take it a step further. I think you have to run a guilt campaign. I think you just have to do a guilt campaign and just make people feel awful for not participating.
But do you
this
think
is your
that works?
city.
We've been trying to guilt them for years
Yeah, but
now.
you got a different target. Before the target was the lower middle class or the upper lower class. Now, as you indicated, you're talking about a generational gap here. You're talking about the young people. Now, my son is 30, my daughter's 22. In my household, it's like going to school.
Yeah.
You're voting. When did you vote yet?
Right.
Or absentee or whatever, but you've got to vote. I think that a guilt campaign and get people to just feel it and feel the pain of not voting. Because if you don't vote, you don't have a say in the process. And you can complain, but you really shouldn't complain.
And there are issues right now that you could take advantage of that with. I mean, we're always talking about violence in the city, but recently children have become a lot of victims. You've covered this many times, and that's something you can jump on. If you have young families, 30, 40 years old, with kids, this is something that can speak right to them. Yeah. This is the future of your city that you need to take ownership of right now.
Absolutely.
So does Mary then have an upper hand because she was accused by one of being the Instagram candidate?
Yeah, I think she does. But I would also say that I think looking at the mayor's race in New York that's going on right now, I think the other thing with this generation, the younger generation, is that they are looking for true progressive candidates. They are not leaning into candidates that they feel are supported by corporations, large PACs.
Even parties.
They're looking at parties,
Yeah.
right. So I think, really, Mary, I think she's probably closer to that than Solomon is, but I think she's going to have to decide what lane she wants to be in terms of bringing those new voters to the polls, because I think they're really looking for a different kind of person to be their next leader. We don't like to say that in the parties. We want to think that it's centrist down the middle for both Republicans and Democrats, but I will tell you that young people are looking for people who are lockstep with them on issues like Israel and Gaza and things that are really considered progressive, but they want to hear what the candidates feel about that, even at local levels, right?
Which might help explain Duggan running as an independent for governor.
Yeah.
It does. Words right out of my mouth.
Yeah, right.
Kinloch this morning actually was talking about how he thinks that this could be a positive kind of case. He could avoid the negativity.
That's not going to happen.
Right, when he was really the only one who caught the majority of the mudslinging in the first go-round. But I'm curious, do you guys think this is going to get nasty before it's over?
Well, as a former campaign manager and consultant to several candidates, there's no smooth kumbaya campaign in today's society. It's not going to happen. Everybody's taking a page out of Trump's book right now. The nastier, the better off that you'll be perceived.
And you've said there's a lot out there on
It's
candidates.
a lot out there on everyone. I mean, those who have not sinned cast the first stone. And I'm not throwing any rocks.
Nor am I.
Yeah, right. So I just think that there's an opportunity here for both the candidates to try to come clean, but your advisors and your consultants are going to put stuff out there. They may not admit that it came from them, but there's stuff that's going to fly. Mud's going to fly.
But from the candidates, I will say that I think that if they don't stick to talking about the issues that are going to face Detroit in the next 4 years, it's going to be a death knell for them.
That was my question for you. Do people care?
Right. People, the mudslinging will cause some hits on the opposing candidate. If you throw something out there, it'll be in the news cycle for, a day or two. But people who want to come to the polls, people who you want to bring to the polls, you've got to talk about what's about to happen in the city. I am still really concerned about the financial cliff that the city of Detroit is facing in the next 2 years. And if in the next year, you're right. And if people are not, if the candidates, these two candidates who've made it to the general are not going to address that, even someone like me, who's a diehard voter, who always goes to the polls, I'm going to vote in November regardless, but I want to hear what the plan is.
Haven't heard a plan
what we're
yet.
going to do when the money spigot turns off, and it's already started.
Well, we have 90 days to hear some plans. We'll see what comes out of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Jason, Portia, Mario, thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your time.